Welcome back. I'm working on chess puzzles once again, taking a break from the daily games and other activities in my life. I am not sure why this queen just moved back here. I guess if it had gone down, I would have just escaped. Okay. I'm looking at this. That looks like checkmate. And if this is a one-move checkmate that took me that long to get, that's a problem, isn't it? Does white have any pieces guarding this square? I do not think so. This pawn is protected by my knight. That square is blocked off by the pawn. That square is blocked off by the knight, and then that would be check. So that's surely, because I'm not in check right now, that's got to be checkmate. Okay. That was probably too easy and give me a false sense of security for the next puzzle. Okay. I think I recognize this from seems like I might have done something like this before. The idea is that there's a discovered check here when I move this rook. And then the question has to be, where do I move the rook? Not entirely sure. I just know that if I move the rook anywhere, then the king is in check. But the king then would just move out of check, right? If I move the rook here, the king will just take it. If I move the rook here, that's the question then, right? The question is where to move that rook. Let me think about this. Okay, I can eliminate some of the places to move the rook, like we've said already. If I move it here, the king will just capture it. If I move it here, the king would just capture it and get out of check at the same time. If I move it back, oh, that's probably the answer. Just move the rook back on this file. But how far back? And the reason I say to move it back on this file, one of these squares, is because that would still be covered by my rook, right? So that's my current idea, is somewhere along this file. That puts the king in check with my bishop, and this square is covered by my rook, so the king would not be able to move. So then the only options to get out of check would be to capture the checking piece or to block. Black does not have any pieces that can block the check on one of these two squares. So they would have to capture the checking piece. Okay, so again, move the rook back to someplace here, one of these squares. Then if they captured here, I couldn't recapture with this rook because then I would hang checkmate on my back rank. I would be in big trouble. So it seems like moving the rook backward down this file would invite that, unless I put it here. That might be the best spot because that protects the bishop. So if they did capture, I would recapture with this rook and still have two rooks, and I would be protecting my back rank from the mate of myself. And I would gain a rook for a bishop, because right now we're even on material. So that's my candidate move. Now the other options for moving the rook are across the same rank rather than that file. For example, here, well, then the king just moves over, and my rook's in danger. If I go here, that might not be too bad, right? because then they wouldn't be able to capture the checking piece. But then the king just moves over. And then what do I do? Then I capture here with check. And they capture back. And then what do I do? Yeah, I don't know. So that's, to me, that's not as good. I don't know what the follow-up would be. Another option would be here. But then the king could just move over. If the king moved over, I would take that rook. They would take that rook. I think I'm going to go back to my original idea. I think that's best. Okay. And then I capture with this rook. Okay. I might have overthought that one. But it wasn't obvious to me. And when the answer's not obvious, I'm just going to think it out a little bit longer. I would rather overthink it than get it wrong. Okay, I do not have an immediate check of any kind. In fact, I only have one capture available here, which the bishop would recapture. And then what? Then I would have a hard time stopping. Oh, well, no. Then I would advance this pawn, right? Let's see. Because we are even on material, and we each have a passed pawn right now. These other 6 pawns are all bumping into each other. They're on the same 2 files. That's a whole nother story. It'd be harder to figure out. But right now we each have a passed pawn. Theirs is blocked by my king right now. So I think, this is my idea, capture the rook. I think it's obvious that the bishop would recapture. Then I would advance the pawn, which would be at that point protected by my bishop. Then the bishop would come back, I think, to guard the promotion square. And then what would I do? I could advance it again. But then the bishop would just get on the promotion square, I guess. And then I could point at the bishop. Maybe. To, to force it off of that square or to capture it, I guess. I don't know. Another option would be to... No, that's not good because then they would just take it. Because I can't get my rook out of here, and my rook's not defended right now. Only way I can defend my rook is to move it forward or backward, which I don't think is a great idea. Is there some way I can check and trap that other king? That's a good question. Let me think about that. I did give that some thought. There's not really a way I can trap that king. If this rook were not sitting here aiming at my rook, this might be an idea, because that would guard these 2 squares, and then I would try to somehow get my rook over here. But I can't do that right now, because if I don't move this rook or guard it in some way, the rook is hanging. So I think I have to take the opponent's rook. I think they have to take back, because if they don't, then I'm checking them, getting behind their bishop, but promoting my pawn. So they'll take back, and then I assume I will advance this pawn. No, I would not advance the pawn immediately. I think I would go there immediately, then advance the pawn. Maybe. Let's try that. Okay. That's the moment of truth right here. Because if I advance the pawn first, the bishop would be immediately guarding it. But that gives their bishop time to guard and get to the promotion square. it also would not if I advance the pawn first, then the king can come to help guard the promotion square. Maybe. But if I first put my bishop here, then the king cannot come either way to help, and their bishop guarding the promotion square would not help. So I'm going to do that first. Yeah. It was advancing the pawn, wasn't it? Okay, it was advancing the pawn. And then the bishop did exactly what I thought it was going to do, which is guard the promotion square. So now do I push the pawn again? Can't move my king forward to help because the pawn guards these two squares, and the bishop obviously cuts my king off here. So I guess I'm just going to push the pawn again, since the puzzle hasn't ended yet, and I don't know what else to do. Once I push the pawn, then the king cannot come because my bishop would be guarding that square. Okay, now the king can come this way, but is this where I okay, this is where I distract the bishop off the promotions diagonal? I don't know what else to do, because, I mean, that wouldn't help, so that was not it. Okay. Well, now I have no earthly idea, so I'm going to click the hint button. It is a bishop move, and it's to go over there where the king can just go beside it. I don't understand. Okay, well, I'm no stranger to feeling not bright here, so click the analysis button. Does that... Okay, that shows up, all right. Okay, I figured out the rook captures rook, and I figured out that the bishop, that was their best move. It says bishop to c7 it is really bad. What would they do if I went bishop to c7? They would go king to h2? Okay. But then why wouldn't I do that? Sorry. Oh, wow, I got my board turned around. That's not even c7. That was f1. Okay. But now it says they would go here. Okay. And why wouldn't I push now? Oh, because then they would get the bishop and still be guarding the promotion square. Okay, that's why moving the bishop down there was not good. Got that. Okay. So this was my move. And oh, it says a bunch of moves for theirs have all about the same value. They could have done king to h2 or bishop to b4. Or even bishop to f8 for some reason. Wow. But what they did was this, right, in the puzzle. And then I advanced. And in the puzzle, white just moved this pawn forward. No? Yeah, in the puzzle, white just moved this pawn forward, which is not listed as one of their best moves. But okay, why wouldn't they block then? That's not much worse for them. Sorry, I had to pause to cough. Okay, but they didn't block. They did this. And then I went here. And so that's my question. Why can't the king just go here? Because I would promote, and they would capture it, and I would capture it, and I would be up a piece for a pawn. I'm going to go to the next puzzle. Wow. Okay. That one was beyond me. Okay. The bishop is guarding the forward movement of my pawn. And if I do go and they capture it, and I capture that, then it's a draw because you cannot win with just a king and a knight against a king. I know that. Watched enough instructional videos to know that you can't win with just a king and a knight against a king. There has to be some other factor, like a pawn that the king gets trapped behind, or another piece to help. So that's not the answer. How do I get that bishop off of there? I can't put the king in check with anything. I can do that and block the bishop's path to the promotion square. Maybe. Okay, then it puts me in check. If I move over, the bishop's just going to come here, right? And still be guarding that. And I can't block because the knights don't move that way. So I have to move out of check. That's got to be... I mean, I can't go here because of the king. Can't go here because of the bishop. So I'm only left with two options. I think I should stay close to the pawn. Okay. I can check now. But the king just comes forward. Oh, I can check here and win the bishop. Okay. We're still a little bit up on net points, so let's try again. I have a check here, and I have a check here. I have a check here. Those all seem okay. Let's follow up. Okay, so if I check here, king only has one legal move. And then I can follow with a check. And the king has to come this way, I guess. Well, no, it could go... Oh, yeah, I couldn't go there. It would have to come down here. And then... I really don't know what to do after that. Because if I check with the queen, the king could go there, and then my queen would be in danger from the rook. Or it could go here, and then I don't know what I would do for sure. If I checked with the queen and the king went this way, I could come back down here and check again and win the knight. So that's an obvious thing, but the king doesn't have to go forward. It could go back. If I checked here and the king went back, I suppose I could check again. But that doesn't seem right. Okay, if I check with the rook, the king cannot go to the second rank. It has to come forward. It has to go there. Much more forcing. The other way, it has two choices. This way, it only has one choice. And I do have follow-up checks here and here. I think the closer one would be slightly better, but that forces the king out here. And I don't have a follow-up for that. But I've got to try it. I don't know. Okay, that's what I thought. I mean, there is this follow-up, but not only can the rook or the king or the knight capture that, but then there's not another follow-up, I think. I just saw a new check. I was saying, yeah, remember before I started, I was looking at these two squares as a check, but now I'm looking at this one, which forces the king through here, and then I win the rook. Okay. And I win the rook with check. Okay. Oh, wow, I'm getting close. 20 minutes. Should I stop? Or should I keep going? I'm on a pretty good roll. I'm so hungry for that 2,000. I'm going to keep going. Just like a good gambler would. I'm not a gambler at all. But this isn't actual money. These are just points on a chess website. Okay. I do like this battery lined up through here. And this piece pinning that pawn would be pinning that pawn after I capture here. Excuse me. Well, I thought I was feeling better, but my cough has come back with a vengeance today. Fortunately, I've been able to pause most of the time before I cough. And my bishop's hanging. I just saw that. That bishop doesn't really matter, though. Right now. I mean, it might matter eventually, but it doesn't matter right now. I think that's looking pretty tasty. Because that puts the rook directly onto this pawn. And I already have these two pieces lined up there. So, for example, if the queen tried to come in here, I can just take it. But it's not a forcing move. That's one problem with that, is that it's not forcing. Because it's not check. It does set up some stuff. It threatens. I mean, it captures a pawn and threatens some nasty stuff with my rook. And that diagonal there, the A8 through H1 diagonal, they wouldn't have to recapture with the queen. What could they do? They could take the bishop, but that's also not a forcing move. And then I could check with the pawn. Opening up my diagonal to here. That's what I'm going to try. Okay. I still say I should check with the pawn here. And the reason I'm saying that is because the king would not be able to get out here and here because of my stuff back here, queen and bishop. It would have to take the pawn. King would have to capture the pawn. And then I come in here, yeah. Not there, though. Here? It's got to be here, right? Okay. There as my follow-up check, but then it just doesn't go back? because I can't check here because of not the pawn and the knight guarding that square and the bishop. Yeah, so it's not that. Pretty sure. Also, I don't want to go here because of the queen. Then I end up losing the bishop too. There's this check, but the bishop guards that, as does the pawn. It's dicey. If I check there, it's going to go back to one of these two squares. And we've already... And then my queen is hit by the rook. Should I just take the bishop now? I can win a free bishop right now. And I would be threatening the rook at the same time. But that's not a check, right? Also, if I did that, what would it keep him from... Oh, no, my bishop would keep him from coming down here. Okay. Yeah, okay. I think I'm just going to take the bishop instead of saying check again. If I check again, he's just going to go back. That's what I would do. Or this way, so he can eventually hide somewhere over here. Okay, I just said he couldn't do that because of my bishop. Okay, I felt like I was getting that wrong at every stage. But I did it. So 4 points to 2,000. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I'm clicking next. I have some checks. There is this check, which is kind of funny. I mean, not... Actually, that might be it. I was over here looking at this rook. Not this one, obviously, because it would just get captured. And not a rook trade, because that would leave me nowhere. But right now, my rook's cut off these squares from the king. And this check would require this pawn to capture, and this pawn would capture guarded by the knight, and that'll be mate. $2,000 again. I'm stopping. Thank you for watching. Yeah, I've got other stuff to do.